All right, the people can see us, hear us, cannot see us yet. Hello, everybody. Hold on here. Hello. Turn that music off. There we are.
Let's go.
And let's make sure our ticker is showing.
It was unfortunate between 4 and 6 point favorites throughout the day, with some sites having the Mavericks as 1 point favorites. Yeah, I saw the line. It was 1 point, I think 2.5.
Right now it's 4.5 in favor of Minnesota. That's exactly what it opened at this morning as well.
I remember seeing,
as you can see here, the over-under is 209.5, so the projected score would be about 107 to 102, Minnesota winning.
Which we won 105 to 100 last game. So
postseason averages for those interested on the bottom here for at least the two top stars on each team. Ant 27.5, 6.5, not 65.
I was gonna say he's balling.
Yeah, and then Luka there, Cat 18.5, 2.7, 8.8. Kyrie 22, 5.2, 3.9. Derek Lively was upgraded to questionable earlier today. With that
purposeful neck.
Yeah, the Muay Thai knee. And then, while you're here, remember to like, comment, subscribe. This is the Jocker Room. Normally we are a podcast, but today we are doing live stream, and this is just because we think this is a better way to do it. We think we get the more information out with people that are interested. So make sure while you're here, please drop a like. And honestly, we get a little bit better quality. We go from like a compressed file to this file. So a little bit better. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Pay attention to that ticker. It's not going to change this time around, but in the future, maybe you'll get a couple different tickers throughout. Or maybe if we can get a third person or fourth person to help run those sorts of things during that in the future, that would be great. Today, we're here to talk to you about Wolves versus Mavericks. We got the game going tonight. It's gonna be
first off, game 5. All day there's been rumors that one specific person is going to be there tonight. The one, the only Kevin Garnett.
Supposed
to be there.
Which, of course, he's going to be sitting next to Glenn Taylor. He's definitely not sitting next to A-Rod.
Yeah, A-Rod and Laurie. Yeah, 100%. Someone was there. Someone was there earlier today for some reason. Not one of the workers, but media availability, and they had a KG presentation thing that they ran on the jumbotron. In the middle, they're like, take this for what you will, but they're running a KG presentation thing prior to the game. So very exciting.
And that's one of the things about this is, so if the Mavericks win, it's the Kyrie championship game.
Sure.
Kyrie Celtics versus Kyrie, former Kyrie team versus current Kyrie team.
Sure. You've got the Luka Bird. Right. You got the Luka Bird comparisons the entire series too.
God, I don't want to hear it. So overall, let's get it out of the way. Do you think the Wolves win it tonight? And do they have a chance in the series?
So I hinged everything on this game because I think if the Wolves win tonight, first off, we're a very momentum swinging team. We also play better when we're the underdog.
That's private chat. There we go. Go ahead, keep going.
So I was like, okay, well, they gotta win. They gotta win game 4, obviously. If the Mavericks somehow give them game 5, the Wolves are the better team. I think we know that, not only just as Minnesota fans, but like just from a basketball standpoint, I think we know they're the better team, just how we've played some of these series and games and what us at our peak is. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any team that can beat us in the peak when our defense is flying around and our offense is flying around. Cat's hitting shots, Rudy's getting lobs, Conley's hitting jumpers, Jaden's playoff rising like he is. Like
Jaden's been the biggest step up overall.
Yeah.
Slow-mo in terms of the series.
This series, 100%. Kyle Anderson has been the best player in this series, and I don't think it's close.
That's what's crazy to me about the Wolves this postseason. So they went into the Suns. Everybody's saying they're going to get swept.
Yeah, because we didn't. That was one of two
Suns.
teams. Yeah, one of two teams we didn't beat in the regular season. It was the Suns and the Bulls.
And every victory had been over 10 points.
Right.
So it was like, this is the hardest matchup for the Wolves, and the Suns were favored to win the series, favored to win most games. The Wolves swept. Then they go into the Nuggets, where people are like, this is the finals, but Nuggets are the way better team. Nuggets were favored in every game and in the series.
Right.
Wolves win in 7. Now they go into the Mavericks. Wolves are the favorite.
Right.
Everybody's talking about the Wolves might be so good they might sweep the Mavericks, or gentlemen sweep Mavericks, and then they come in and they lose the first 3.
Right.
But like everything that has been expected of the Wolves this postseason has gone the opposite. So when I see that the Wolves are favored tonight and that sort of thing, it actually terrifies me because they've been better going against what everybody says.
Right. And the game 4 kind of silver lining to all this is in the first 3 games of the series, we had a lead with like at least 4 minutes left.
Right.
We had a small lead in 4 minutes left. And so crunch time would be the last 5 minutes of whatever, where the Mavericks this season were the best in crunch time, clutch time, whatever you want to call it. Whereas we weren't obviously that great because we lost those 3 games. But in game 4, we were also in a crunch time, clutch time situation, and we matched their output. So we were up 5. They scored 10 points. We scored 10 points in that clutch period. We won by 5. So hopefully, if it does come to that situation again, where the Mavericks have been really good, we learn from those 3 losses and what we did in game 4, and we can finish that clutch.
They did the same thing in game 4 that they did in those 3 losses, which was started to lose it in the last 5 minutes of both the second quarter and the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah. Our end of quarter, end of half kind of chaos is not great. That's something we definitely can improve on.
And we have yet to see the best version of the Wolves this series.
Right.
So the fact that they've won a game at all is actually awesome, because if we get the best version of the Wolves, that means we should be able to win out.
Right.
If the problem is no team's ever done it.
Right.
You are facing probably the best player in the league.
Right. No team's ever come down from 15 points at halftime in a game 7. We did that. No one's beaten Kyrie in a closeout game. We did that. So,
and
out
of all those teams, of the 155 teams that have won when they were up 3-0, none of those teams that were down 3-0 or 0-3 were the Timberwolves.
Right, exactly. The Timberwolves have never lost a game 7.
They've never lost a game 7.
Right. So, I saw a fun little snippet where Jaden in game 7 averages like 19.5 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. And they were like, the Wolves just got to 0-3 so that they unlocked elimination game Jaden. So,
well, and Jaden has risen really well overall these playoffs. Mike Conley's kind of been inconsistent, but he averages out to about what you expect.
Sure, about 10 points. Like you can get 10 points, can a couple threes. Yeah.
Cat has been up and down. He did well in Phoenix, did well against the Nuggets, and this series,
the first 3 were rough.
First 3 games were rough, and the first 3 quarters or first 2 quarters of game 4 was bad.
Sure,
almost fouled out in the third quarter.
Yeah, and then you see him splash 4 threes in a row, every 3 he made. So
thanks to the direction of Kyle Slow-Mo.
Yeah,
Anderson.
that was both his second and third 3 were all Kyle Anderson getting him open. So man, it's exciting. I mean, I think before game 4, Wolves fans in general were like, well, you know what? If this is it, this is it. You know, like they've given us a hell of a season. We got to be thankful for what they did do. And how can we continue on? That was one side of the Wolves fans, and then the other side was we're the worst team in the NBA.
Even though we're in the Western Conference
Yeah,
Finals.
yeah. But those fans are like, well, if this is it, this is probably it. Like the Mavs have handled us, at home. They handled us on the road. But then, and this is kind of how I've been feeling too. The back of my mind, after all that, 0-3, we're down 0-3. No team's ever done it. Back of my mind, it's like, but they could.
They could.
Like,
There's no. It's not.
could.
The chance is not zero.
Right. So,
history tells us the chance is almost zero.
Right.
But this is, the NBA is so haphazard overall. Who knows what it could bring? And the Wolves overall, if they play at full potential, do feel like they are the best team in the league.
Right.
And with Derek Lively potentially out, the lane is no longer clogged. The lobs don't seem as like 100% as they do with when Lively's in there. I don't want teams to be injured, but that injury has definitely been impactful.
Right. I mean, Kleber and Dwight Powell have not done well. Granted, they weren't part of the rotation, so it's like you're inserting these people that are trying to like get their wheels back, I guess. And
who's their other center, the big guy that's been killing us?
Gafford.
Gafford gets better when Lively's there. Like Gafford's good, but he's even better when Lively's there.
Right. And they play. I mean, I think the Gafford's biggest impact has been his blocks. I think he's just had a hell of an eye for angles and lanes, and in regards to his defense, it's pretty easy to catch a lob right next to the rim when there's no one next to you. So
speaking of that, there's been a lot of questions regarding Rudy Gobert. Defensive Player of the Year is getting played off the court as once speculated that they should do. Is it a matchup or has something changed? Because to me, since he had his kid and took that game off, has when he's kind of declined. It obviously has nothing to do with that.
Right.
But that's when you started noticing the fact, like in my eyes, that's when he stopped being
I think that's also
factor.
I think that's also been, I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's actually like insane. The offensive rating with him out there is like plus 14. So like, or minus, plus 14. So like we score 121 points per 100 possessions with him on the floor on offense. And we score like 107 or 17 point difference, 104 with him off the court. So like just him screening, him rolling, him getting to the free throw line, like that's increasing our offensive rating by like 17 points. And then defensive rating is even like a bigger number with him off the court. So it's like, I think from that moment you said that game 2 of the Denver series where he did miss the game for his kid, which I have no problem with. He should be there for that moment. Yeah, blurry. Come on, camera.
Just try, camera. Just try. You were doing just fine. All I did was adjust in my seat.
So since that game 2, I think that's when the media took that and kind of ran with it in regards to the negativity around him. And I think that's kind of since that point, it was Rudy was afraid to guard Jokic when in reality our defensive scheme was for him not to guard Jokic. So I think people took that as in like he's afraid to guard Jokic when in reality you want to put him on a non-shooter that he doesn't have to, where he can help defend, I guess. So I think that game 2 is not necessarily his decline in play, but I think that's when the media started getting in a negative mindset to him, whereas everyone started to believe, oh yeah, like he is a faux DPOY, like defensive player of the year. So
Kendrick Perkins is back to being his normal self. He rode the Wolves while they were doing well, claiming that he's always been on the Wolves. The second the Wolves go down 0-3, I regret my vote. Wolves aren't what I thought is. Immediately drops back to what every media person
it's
does.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
So I mean, I never really was a big fan of Perk. I thought he had the correct opinion earlier, and then he backs out on his own opinion. So not only is he not have the integrity, but
right. And if you gotta stick with, there's got to be someone out there that like sticks with, like much like that NFL guy. I want to say Kyle Brandt. Is that the guy?
Kyle Brandt, yeah,
that always stood by like the Kirk Cousins. He denied the Kirk Cousins hate. He said this guy's great, or something like that. So like that guy always stuck to the same story, the same word, and
Dan Patrick's been that way.
Sure.
For the Wolves in terms of like a media personality that's been honest with the Wolves. Dan Patrick seems to be the most, but most people, majority of the media have flip-flopped on him, which I get it as a Minnesota fan. Like as soon as they went down 0-3, I'm like, are they not what I thought they were gonna do? Like is this not the best Minnesota team? Obviously, I still think it's the best Timberwolves team we've ever had.
Right. I think it is too. I mean, us playing at our peak versus that 04 team. You know what I mean? Like where do they have the plus matchup? You know what I mean? Outside of like KG, obviously, but like
if Sprewell comes back the following year, there was two guys that left the Wolves the year after the 03-04.
Sure.
The following year, two players left. If those two players come back with the guys that they got in addition and all that, if that team goes instead, the guys left for money and all that crap, that team probably is the next best.
I mean, I
team.
think they match. Yeah, I think they match up. I mean, they would match up well. You know what I mean? Like you'd have Trenton Hassel on Ant, which would be a really good matchup. But then you'd have Jaden on Sam Cassell or Sprewell or something like that. So like,
right.
I think that would be a hell of a series.
So it was Cassell, Sprewell, Zerbiak, KG.
I think was it Hassel instead? Did Zerbiak come off the bench?
I guess it was eventually Zerbiak's plantar fasciitis. Just he stopped. So yeah, Hassel. And then was it Olowokandi?
Olowokandi. Yeah, I think it was Olowokandi.
So I mean, Olowokandi and Gobert are quite similar in at least play style,
right?
Just kind of like lumbering, but Gobert's way more athletic. It's just and the game has changed so much even since then,
right?
But it's definitely you have to have Gobert on KG because Cat's not guarding KG,
right?
Which means Cat's on Olowokandi, and Candy could probably bully Cat, but he just never. Candy was there to play defense; he wasn't there to play offense.
Right, and you want Michael Olowokandi to come out on Cat or something like that if they are like. I mean, KG would probably guard Cat.
KG would guard Cat, but Gobert would guard KG.
Right. Yeah.
And then just like you would have Hassel would be on Ant, but J-Mac would be on Sprewell.
Right. Yeah. So, or depending on if Cassell's bringing the ball, they like to run Jaden on the ball carrier too. So, I mean, Conley would be on Hassel this to gain a corner or something like that. So, I mean,
this team is just better.
Yeah, I agree.
When I think about
Nas and Nas,
even like those straight up matchups,
right?
And then when you go to the bench, it's like Troy Hudson and Fred Hoiberg and Wally Zerbiak.
Yeah, versus who's guarding Nas? Who's guarding Nas there? You know what I mean?
Who was it? Eddie Griffin.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Eddie Griffin and Duty Eby.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. This is the best team the Wolves have had. So, if anybody can
Craig
do
Smith?
it's them.
And Mark Madsen?
That was later. That was Mark Madsen was there, but Craig Smith was later. That was like the next. That was our trash years. He was part of that.
And then Rip Hamilton was shortly after that.
Tayshaun Prince.
No, the dude from Boston. Not Rip Hamilton, the dude from Ricky Davis.
Ricky Davis, there you go. Yeah.
I loved when Ricky Davis. His stupid kick out shot. Every time he'd jump, and his right foot would always be out like a scissor. in
Yeah.
his jump shot. It was the
That's an
weirdest thing.
offensive foul now, unless you're Luka. But I mean,
Unless what?
uh,
Speaking of which, so now we were talking about one-on-one matchup. Let's talk about one-on-one matchups with the Wolves and Mavericks. But before we do that, let's just get it out there. I hate blaming the refs. I think that is like weak. That is such a just a stupid thing to do. Unless they're genuinely changing the outcome of the game.
right.
Like Angel Hernandez just left baseball. He was
Right.
genuinely changing the outcome of baseball games with what he
Right.
did.
Right.
That's when you can complain about the ref. Scott Foster has had some very questionable calls, all these sorts of things.
We actually don't do too bad in Scott Foster games, which is
Right.
surprising.
But
We do even
overall,
better.
the
We do
refs
even. We
better
do
what?
even better in Mark Davis games, which is tonight. But
overall, the refs have been not bad, but extremely inconsistent.
right.
So like instead of just letting fouls go or calling everything, they are heavily favoring players over teams.
Right.
So they are like Luka and is getting every single
call. Yes.
and like calls that you flip it and it like that exact play was mirrored either with Ant or J-Mac with the ball and it
Right.
was not called or it was
Right.
called offensive.
Right. And you can even say the Cat for his like fourth foul, he did a pump fake and then PJ Washington jumped up and Cat went into him, ended up like hitting him in the face with the elbow. But it was the same thing that Luka did. So Cat got called for an offensive foul. He jumped towards PJ Washington, ended up hitting him. Luka did that same thing. And then even in that 2021 video where the NBA was like, we're going to crack down on this. This is an offensive foul. If it's not, and it's a Luka example. And so like, if you watch that play in real time, how Luka jumps forward into Cat, if it's a natural shooting motion and the way Luka shoots is kind of actually leaning back a little bit. There's nothing natural about that shooting motion.
No.
So,
and that originally came out because of James Harden was the rule that they were changing it for was James Harden would just throw his body into people.
Yeah.
Or he'd lock their arm down and then go like he is the reason why they started those sorts of calls. Luka Doncic did the same thing. Kyrie Irving was featured in that video doing that on 3-pointers. So there's a reason why that's not supposed to be. If you leave your feet, it used to be you left your feet, it was always a foul. That doesn't exist anymore in the NBA. That should never have been called in the first place. I'm glad Luka missed the free throw because it never should have happened in the first place.
Right. And it ended up fouling out somebody that was that impactful to our success in maintaining a lead, keeping a lead. So say what you want about Cat, but the Wolves are a better team when he's on the floor. So
yeah, they are. Yep. I think this series, you could argue Nas is more impactful than Gobert. And this series, you could argue Slow-Mo has been more impactful than Cat, but it's in their roles that they're impactful. So people are assuming, well, if you just start Slow-Mo and Nas, the game overall is going to be better. When it's like, no, Slow-Mo and Nas are doing so well because of their role.
Right. And I think the transition from the Wolves defensive plan in game 4 compared to the other 3 was that they were following Luka because you can't go under a screen on Luka because he's just going to shoot a 3. And that's what you don't want is you don't want Luka and Kyrie shooting 3, so you go over it. Therefore, you're behind the player. So when you're behind the player, then the post needs to make a decision if he's going to come up and help. But that's what opened up that dunk spot for them. How many times did that happen?
Sure.
And so Gobert stepping up, Gafford scored because so Rudy Gobert's guy scored, but that was the game plan was to stop Luka from, getting the basket. And then in game 4, you see the wings finally cover that dunker. You see the wings cover that dunker, so then Rudy can come up or Cat can come up or Nas can come up, and you're getting shots to PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr., and they're making some, but they're missing some. And so now that was what their game plan change was. So it looks a lot better because instead of Luka getting bunnies to Lively and Gafford, you have PJ Washington, who's shooting like 21% from three, and you've got Derrick Jones Jr., which can only shoot threes at home. So,
Right.
he literally he's just a sniper in Dallas, but he just could not hit anything in Minnesota. So, I think that should have been the game plan earlier. Was like, if PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. want to make 10 threes on us, and that's how we lose, then that's how we lose. But like Luka getting 40 or Kyrie getting 30, like you got to try to prevent those guys from getting their stuff. So,
right. It's kind of like when Aaron Gordon shoots 100% from the field, you deserve to win.
That's an anomaly. Like that's not gonna happen every game.
Which is similar. Same thing goes for the Wolves. If Jaden McDaniels gives you like 27 points, you can't squat. Like he had like 24 points, 25 points in game one.
His playoff career high is 24. So yeah,
you lose. You cannot squander an anomaly on your own side.
Right.
Just like you need to take advantage or be okay with an anomaly on the other side.
Right.
Like it definitely goes both ways. I think Kyrie seems to just be there. I don't know.
Everyone's like, okay, first off, earlier when we talked, we said like the media started a negative mindset towards the Wolves. I think that's been literally everybody. It's the TNT broadcast, it's the ESPN broadcast, it's the media, it's social media, it's Wolves fans, it's Dallas fans, everybody. And so I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, and the just Kyrie. The fact that so Kyrie, everyone's on the TNT broadcast, they're just glazing Kyrie. Like they're like, oh, well, Luka's having a really good first half, but wait till Kyrie gets going in the second half. And in actuality, Kyrie's averaging 22 points per game in this series, which is good, but it's not like how they're talking about him.
That's higher than his average for the rest of the playoffs.
Right. I mean, it's good. Like it's a good number for a number two. Like Cat's averaging 18, Kyrie's averaging 22. If Cat didn't, miss every single shot in game 3, they have similar numbers, and no one's really the difference in what TNT and media and stuff talk about.
Cat's a perfect example of why you can't listen to the media. Because the media said bench, and the Wolves fans and all that said bench Cat, stop shooting.
Yeah, everyone did. Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith, Draymond.
Draymond shouldn't be in the first place.
Like Draymond shouldn't have shoot.
I was listening to, I can't remember who it was, somebody else in the media talking about Draymond Green. You have a guy who's been like the most technical fouls in a single season, ejected multiple times, has had off the court issues, punched a teammate. And that's the guy that you're saying you want to represent the NBA in a broadcast. It makes no sense. Then you want to
represent the last stint of inside the NBA too.
Right. Then you put him in a place where he clearly has a personal vendetta, at least 2 players, but especially a team, being the Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert.
Right.
I genuinely think he is a pathetic broadcaster. But overall, just in general, I don't get how he has a platform. He's similar to like Gilbert Arenas, where people listen for the virality of it.
Right.
So companies are investing in these guys, not because they're good at their job, they're intelligent or anything. They're investing in the clicks.
Right.
Draymond gets clicks, but he processes those clicks as I'm good at what I'm doing.
Right.
When Fox, all these guys, all the people that have given Colin Cowherd's the person that owns his podcast, gives him the network. He's like, oh yeah, go ahead and think that all you want, but you're bringing me in the money. That's all I care about. Because as soon as those clicks go away, as soon as people get sick of him, just like what has happened with guys like Kendrick Perkins, also people are gonna, as soon as those clicks go away, he's gonna get dropped so fast.
Right.
And in this, he's been. You mute the broadcast when he's on it.
I almost did. I almost muted game 4 and brought up Alan Horton on Timberwolves radio. So
and Alan Horton's just honest. That's why Alan Horton and Jim Pete, the Wolves Network guys,
Grady.
They tell you when, and Grady, yeah, they tell you when they're playing badly, but they're excited when they play well.
Right.
That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear you. That's the same reason why Joe Buck and Chris Collinsworth are horrible to listen to in the NFL. You know which team they're rooting for every time.
Right. Right.
That's Draymond and these guys, Chuck. My issue with Chuck and Shaq is they clearly don't like this job anymore. I don't know what happened to them.
I don't think they watch sports. Like they don't watch the games outside of like Lakers and.
There's not a chance. When you listen to what they say, there's not a chance they pay attention to what's going on. Right. They don't even, I don't know if they could tell you the schemes that are occurring on the court on anyone else besides the Lakers. And even then, I don't think they could tell you. They just know who's on it.
Right.
They're there for the entertainment. They're not there for knowledge. They're not there for doing a good job when maybe that's just kind of how sports media is now. But I would rather listen to each team's local broadcasters because they seem to understand.
Oh, yeah. If I could watch Jim Pete and Grady cast this game, I would. It's not even close.
Oh, even like
and how much
the New Orleans Pelicans guy. I can't think of his name right now. I feel bad that I can't remember. He is insanely good at his job.
Was he the guy? Was that the one where Cat was like hitting every shot? No, that was the Hornets.
That's the Hornets. Yeah.
Yeah. God, that guy. That was a brilliant call.
Right. Yeah. And that guy, he did a good job.
That was so good.
But the Pelicans, whoever, I can't think of that guy's name. Just the perfect example. I'd rather listen to that local guy because he's good at what he's doing.
Right.
I got off on a tangent there, but Draymond sucks. The broadcast sucks. Listen to your local broadcast because it's a million times better. Mute the thing and mute the broadcast and whatever. One-on-one matchup.
Also, watch some games. Look up some stats before you listen to a media take.
Absolutely. And before you listen to what somebody says on Twitter.
Right. Yeah.
It's never right.
Right.
I mean, Twitter thinks that Julius Randle can be traded for 4 firsts, Jalen Williams, and dumb.
Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, Isaiah Joe, and 3 firsts. I was like, is this 2017 Kevin Durant? What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's and that's what you get on Twitter. You have people that somebody has a breakout game, like. If Twitter was NBA Twitter was what it is now back then, Jeremy Lin would have been a 99 on 2K. Jeremy Lin would have been the next big, like the next guy. Is Jeremy Lin a better small guard than Allen Iverson?
Yeah.
That sort of crap would be being said. That's what you get. It's immediate reaction. What have you done for me yesterday? Not even what have you done for me lately?
Sure.
It's so dumb. And that's why Ant has gone from the next Michael Jordan to, well, he's not as good as we thought. Dan Patrick summed it up perfectly. The media is who told you he's the next Michael Jordan. And now the media is telling you, well, he's not living up to those Michael Jordan expectations. MFer, you gave him those expectations.
Right.
This is your fault anyway. Right. Like he's just having a down series.
Right.
That doesn't mean he's some terrible player. Like people are saying SJ is better. How's Shea doing this series?
Right.
Where's his team?
How's Shea doing in the Western Conference Finals? Yeah.
How's his team doing? Did he elevate his teammates? Because Ant, when he's having off nights, his assist numbers go up, his steals numbers go up.
Oh yeah, he almost had a triple-double last night.
He did. Luka did have one, and Ant almost had one.
Yeah, he was one assist away.
The big thing with with that is the playoffs are huge you might not even get the best team to win. It's a huge part of it is your path to winning. That's why in things like the NFL, that extra bye week, people say, oh, you get rusty. That's an extra week of rest and an extra week of that wild card weekend. The team you don't want to go up against might have just a terrible week, and now you have a way better matchup. The Wolves had to go up against a tough matchup in the Suns and swept them, luckily.
Right.
But then they had
the
defending champs in a 7-game series in which they had to come back against 3-2.
Right.
The
best player in the world.
Right. And the Mavericks had to go up against, what was it, Clippers?
No. The Clippers, yeah, which we all knew the Clippers were fake ever since December, where they won 13 games in a row, and everyone was like, "They're the number one team."
Right.
And then the Wolves ended that 13-game win streak very easily.
And the Clippers started being picked to win it all.
Right. Yeah.
Well, then they got to go up against a fake playoff team.
Right.
Then they had to go up against a soft, young OKC team that only went 5 games. So they go up against a team that is like gone through attrition to get to this point, and they are at like a coasting point. No wonder they went up 3-0 on this team.
Right.
The fact that the Wolves are even kicking, which is why like now the Wolves have to go 7 games. It terrifies me because even if they do overcome something that's never happened before,
Boston,
now they have to go to Boston, who has been rested after sweeping the easiest path to the finals ever. And the Wolves are coming into the finals at the hardest path ever.
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like people never consider every single thing. I was listening to a guy from Minnesota who's currently in Denver. Was at a game at a bar watching the game, and all the Denver fans were rooting against the Wolves. They like booed when the Wolves won in the bar.
Sure.
I think it's so ridiculous to me. Like so all season long, the Denver Nuggets, you had people on Twitter, all this stuff like the team we want to face is the Wolves because we respect them, all this stuff. The Wolves beat them. It's like, we don't respect the Wolves anymore. Fuck the Wolves, hate the Wolves. And it's like, why do you want, just because they beat you? So if it was flipped and the Mavericks beat you, then you'd be rooting for the Wolves, or what's the plan here? Why don't you just root for the person or the players or the scheme, whatever that you're wanting to root for, as opposed to like creating some personal vendetta? Just makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we have any ill will towards like us as Timberwolves fans. Like, I don't think we have any malice towards Denver at all. Maybe a little bit Jamal Murray, but he almost did that to himself. But just in general, like watching basketball, like Denver's constructed very well. And I think
I have no issue with the Suns. I have an issue with Devin Booker.
Right.
I have no issues with the Nuggets. I have an issue with Jamal Murray.
Right.
I have no issues with the Mavericks. I have an issue with Luka getting every call that's imaginable. Yeah. But I also understand, as a Mavericks fan, I would understand if you're like, man, Cat and Ant complain after every play, because they do.
Right.
Ant screams every time he goes for a layup. He yells. A lot
of those times, Ant does get fouled. There was one play where right before the Luka pump and then into Cat, Anthony Edwards landed sideways on top of somebody. And I was like, there's got to be a body call or something. Like, that can't just happen where Anthony Edwards goes into a mess of people, or if it's an offensive foul, it's something. Something. So
we like WNBA. I feel like we talk about it more recently. Angel Reese is dealing with something very similar that Ant deals with. I think the confidence on top of type of play style, like she got undercut twice, 2 plays in a row. No call until the second one, and then they were like, okay, maybe we should call it. Like, and it's the same way. Like, he does get fouled, he does ask for it. I think Cat tends to whine a bit much, and if I were an opposing fan, I would dislike.
There's a lot of that specific game. When Cat got that offensive foul, there was nothing like Cat actually didn't even like lower the shoulder. Like, it was a standard like layup into Kleber, who was set. Kleber was set, and Kleber went straight up. And Cat didn't lower the shoulder like that. He just went like
he didn't do the Jokic.
Right. And
like,
so
Jokic gets credit and like complimented for that crap.
And they just called an offensive foul because it's Cat. And it's like, it should have just been a no call. Like, it should have just been a no call, because it was nothing malicious offensively and nothing malicious defensively. So it's like, but because of Cat's like stigma with Cat, it's
if you're gonna call that on Cat, you have to call that on Jokic 20 times a game.
Right.
If you're gonna call that on Cat, you got to call it on Luka, because Luka lowers his shoulder every time, especially when it's a smaller guard. He does the push off constantly.
Yeah. Actually, the third play of the game, it went Dallas scored, or Dallas missed, Wolves scored. Anthony Edwards is coming back on defense, and now Anthony Edwards is guarding Luka, and they got Jaden on Kyrie because just speed wise you can't stay up with Kyrie, but Jaden's length can stick with Kyrie. And before first he's like trotting backwards, and he looks at the ref and he's like, "Watch for this." That's third play of the game. We're not even like 30 seconds in the game, and Ant's like, "Watch for this." He's getting it into the ref's head, like. He does this.
He does every time. But the ref's probably like, yeah, we know. The ref he's like, yeah, don't worry. He pays us $50 every time he does it.
We know.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane that the stuff that he gets away with or gets calls for.
He also does like the Phantom,
which there you go. I have no ill will towards OKC. I don't like Shea. Sixers. Screw the Sixers. Oh, the whole team. Screw them all. And Tyrese Maxey, you're the only one.
Yeah, I like Maxey too.
Everyone else on the team, just screw the whole team. Embiid specifically, but everyone, fans, all of them. Right. But otherwise, like you don't really have ill will against all these teams. Maybe that's because that's the type of fans we are. Maybe that's just the way like media and Twitter want you to be. Is they want you to be like aggressive and hate everyone. Maybe that's because it's always been that way.
As a fan of the sport, like how I see it is like we look at Phoenix, for example, and from a basketball standpoint, we think that their roster is like not great.
It's not
like it's not constructed great because you got KD who needs the ball in his hand a lot. You have Booker who needs the ball in his hand a lot, and you got Beal who needs the ball in his hand a lot. But I think Phoenix made a bad trade for Beal because it was best player on a bad team, right? But it wasn't like a Kevin Love going to Cleveland situation. It was like Kevin Love with a supermax going to Cleveland.
Right. Well, and KD is a big who doesn't play big. He's more like LeBron where he's got the big body, but he'd rather be the guard position.
Right.
So now you have Booker guard, KD who plays like a guard. You add Beal who's a guard. And you got rid of Ayton, who was like your consistent center.
Right.
So you got a ton of cap with a position that doesn't fit. The Suns were their own, like, what the hell are you doing sort of team. And that's why when the Wolves were down 0-3 and people were talking all these cat trade scenarios, when I saw one for Bradley Beal, I almost wanted to like punch the person through the phone. Like, nobody wants Bradley Beal. Nobody.
I don't know how they're going to offload that. Like
they're not. They were talking about it. The only player that is legitimately tradable on the Suns is Devin Booker.
Right.
He's the only person you can actually move.
Right.
Which you better hope you get just a haul of picks to rebuild because you're going to be rebuilding around Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant. The Suns are just screwed.
The fact that they traded Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson like that, like.
Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton is your two bigs is so good.
Yeah, and Bridges is like first off, Iron Man doesn't miss a game. Bradley Beal misses games. KD misses games because they're 35 years old. Yep. Cam Johnson, who's a niche kind of player, but like he's a stretch four. Like he's a stretch four. He's a shooter. And when you got ISO players, when you have ISO players like Booker, KD obviously was in that trade, but like when you have ISO players like Booker or Beal, you need open shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what you need, and they don't have shooters. Like Eric Gordon, also 35, so it's like just a fan.
Nuggets did the same thing. They got rid of those role players, hoping that the other players are just good enough to win. When the role players means that's why the Wolves are where they are now. You can even say
Bruce Brown was the second best player in their playoff run. Like you could say Bruce Brown was that impactful to that team. And they let him go. So it's like, and that's you see them struggle a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we can not like one player, but as a fan of the sport, we can also look at a team and talk basketball around that team and like what we think they should do without any malice. I guess malice or stuff. That's the point. We kind of tangent off again, but
that's what we do.
Point of the thing.
But yeah, I feel no malice. If the Mavericks beat us, I have no malice again. Like I'm upset about the type of calls that they're getting, but I really don't. I like Kyrie. I do like Luka's game. I don't like the fact that he gets all those calls, but
There's a
that's kind
handful
of part of the
of.
NBA now.
We'll have to save that for a different episode. But there's a different of like the foul baiters, and then there's like which sucks is like those players, like just to name 4: Embiid, Brunson, SGA, Luca. Like those players like come to mind right off the bat. But like they're good enough to not do that, and that's what's frustrating. That's what's frustrating is that they're good enough to just not foul bait.
That's always been my issue with Harden.
Right.
He was in his prime. He foul baited, and he was a great free throw shooter. So he'd get 45 points a game on 21 free throws.
Yeah, he was the one to kind of exploit the rules. Yep. I mean, it's not necessarily there. It was legal rules at the time, but like using the ball to create distance rather than
just like how it's legal what Embiid and Shea and them. It's legal what they're doing. It's just boring, kind of unethical basketball where it's like you don't respect the game,
right?
Especially coming from somebody like Luca who complains that the American basketball is not as clean and not as tough as European basketball. Well, it's like, what do you think is tough when we watch you flop and play soft, unethical basketball every game? Right. What is tough to you?
Right.
It makes no sense. Embiid, same way. Like Embiid gets hurt so much because of how many times he throws himself to the floor.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why he gets hurt so much. Like I would love to see. This is weird. I would love to see prime Joakim Noah guarding Embiid because I feel like Noah would just shove the crap out of Embiid like to the floor every time.
Oh yeah.
And he'd just be like, he wasn't some intense presence, but he was a physical defender.
Right. Oh yeah.
And people always ended up on the floor, and he'd get 5 fouls a game.
Right.
And Embiid throws himself to the floor. I feel like you would have earthquake-level impacts of him flopping with Joakim pushing.
That'd be like anyone guarding Shaq, too. Like, what's Embiid going to do? Like, Embiid's going to just fall over if Shaq breathes on them. That's what it's going to happen. So
that's whenever I hear people say nobody's been as unstoppable as Shaq, like Embiid's the first time guy since Shaq. Like, no, I never once saw Shaq throw himself to the floor and like cry.
Yeah.
I've never once seen that, but I have seen Shaq shatter the back of a backboard
multiple times.
Yes.
Yeah. I always, just another tangent here. When they got the who would win, all right, like who would win? And it's like this team, this team, this team, this person, this person, this person. At 95% of the time, I take the team with Shaq.
Yep.
He's the most dominant player at his position ever.
And if it's like a team where it has Steph and Shaq on it, I don't care what the rest is. You have a perfect outside game and a perfect inside game. I don't care who the other people are. You could have a team that has MJ, Kobe, and LeBron on it.
Yeah.
If the other team has Steph and Shaq,
no one can guard Shaq. It's just,
I think MJ could probably shut down Steph. Who's guarding Shaq?
Yeah, there was another one I saw that had like Warriors KD, and I was like, and Shaq. Warriors KD and Shaq, and I was like, it's game over at those two. What did we do?
Do people understand Warriors KD was the second lead vote getter for defensive player of the year with like 35 points a game?
Yeah, Warriors KD is a top 10 player all time. It's just stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah. Anyway, we're probably just going on tangents here, talking whatever, but overall, I think tonight the Wolves win. I think game 6 is a 50-50 shot.
Dogfight. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that game 6 is the decider. Because if we get to game 7, I think Wolves win.
Here. Yeah.
I'm kind of pissed because I mentioned this. I mentioned this to my dad. If the Wolves get swept, whatever. If the Wolves win one, I'm going to be right back in it going, they can do this.
Yeah.
So now it's going to hurt harder again if they lose. If they get swept, it doesn't hurt. It's just like, God, it's over. Whatever.
Yeah, the only downside to if they got swept was you have to hear cat trade rumors the entire offseason, which is.
And then Reggie Miller comes out and says, I would rather have been swept than lose in a tough series. Reggie Miller said it's hard. And I was like,
all this experience is good.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
At the end of the day, our best player is 22 years old, so it's like we've got him for 6 more years.
And with the
at
contract
least.
situations the way they are, they're perfectly in line to end up here again next year.
Yeah, 100%.
As long as
Because
they stay,
the
the
problem,
issue is you have to stay healthy again.
yeah, the problem, and the only negative is if you're in that second tax apron for consecutive years. So like
Yeah.
this next year when Catsteal kicks in, Antsteal, Rudy's is there, Conley's extension, Jaden's extension, doesn't matter because like you go over it for 1 year, doesn't matter because it's consecutive years is where you start to get penalized. So
And they're projecting that there's going to be 2 expansion teams within the next 5 years. And when that happens, the Wolves are most likely going to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, with Memphis probably. Yeah.
So, and that's within the next 5 years. A lot of this team is still like the core of this team.
And what's crazy is that it would be Milwaukee, Detroit, Chicago, and one other team, maybe like Cleveland, maybe Memphis. I don't know, one of those teams. But those 3, Milwaukee, Detroit, Chicago. I don't know how you don't group those in with Minnesota. And then, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's probably Cleveland, if I had to guess.
Yeah, sure.
I'm trying to picture it. Yeah, you got Chicago in there. You don't want. I guess you could go further. You could do like Memphis or not Memphis.
Because Memphis came with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but
you could probably do Memphis.
Right. So,
I don't know. I think the Wolves have it tonight. They're again 4.5 point favorites. They've gone against the grain every time, so it makes me nervous.
Right.
But I do think the Wolves have it tonight.
Yeah,
I think the Wolves win tomorrow or Saturday. Game 6 is what's gonna happen to me. I've especially because they're most like Lively will be back at that point.
Right.
It's in Dallas. All the pressure's on Dallas, and they're all Kyrie with that much pressure terrifies me.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's scary. But I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we didn't get swept. We're in the Western Conference Finals. This is the best Wolf team we've ever seen, and we're poised to do well again next year, especially if we stay healthy. So whether win, lose, continue, whatever, I'm so happy with this team.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be happier. All the teams that beat us, all those fans that say they hate us, whatever, man. I like your team. Whether you want to say Shea is great, Shea is great. He just could change his game.
Right.
You want to say, you hate us and Nuggets fans, whatever. Your team's still great. You can hate us. Your team's still great.
But your team's also at home.
Right. We just beat you this year because we're also great. It's awesome. The Western Conference is insane. Like teams 1 through 13 are awesome.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy good basketball as long as everybody plays good basketball and doesn't get stupid fouls called against them or for them. If everybody just plays good basketball, we watch both teams play to their potential, this series could go to 7 games and could be insanely good. Let's just enjoy it. I don't know why I don't know why people have to bring hate into sports all the time.
Yeah.
Why can't it be some positivity in there consistently? Sure. I feel like we try to do that and we do a good job of that.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. Good job of that. I feel like we need some music to bring us out of there.
Yeah. Wolves back. Wolves in 7. It's always been Wolves in 7. I saw this one thing, the like gun to the back of the head at the moon. It's like, wait, it's Wolves in 7? Always has been.
Always has been. It was last series. I mean, the Wolves let it go get to 7 on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
We're doing it again.
If you want to stop me, you're going to have to.
Yeah.
Wolves
go
back,
Wolves.
baby.
Wolves back. Fuck, you're going to make me howl, man.
Yeah. Let's go.
All right, we'll bring the itch back for you next week. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.